offering that competing worldview where the stakes are a son or a nephew, like a family member, and what is going to happen, I think gives those characters an opportunity to combat, to negotiate, to push back and forth around this question of identity.
Everyone, and welcome back to No Script, an unscripted conversation about theater's best scripts. I'm Jackson, that's Jacob, and we are back after our hiatus, kicking off episode 1 of season 13?
It's season 13, which I feel like we could do a reverse jinx. Like, we could just talk about the number 13, and, like, it's going to be a terrible season. We're going to have all these technical issues. They're going to, like, scheduling going to fall apart. One of us going to get sick, you know, just
for sure,
awful.
for weeks.
Yeah, and that way we, like, reverse it, and it actually ends up being a really smooth season. That feels like...
For sure.
That's probably, you know, theater people are superstitious. I'm not particularly, and I don't think you are particularly, but, like, I think our audience might be, like, on average, more superstitious than other people.
Yeah. There's an awareness of the fates out there, for sure. And we don't want to tempt them, but today in this season we are boldly forging into a chaotic season 13. Excited to be talking about more of theater's best scripts with all of you, returning to a couple hallmarks of our season as we always do, but just getting to engage more scripts, having great conversations and getting the chance to share them with all of you. Thanks for coming back for another season. We're excited to continue rocking and rolling here.
For sure, we're on the forefront. We've got a great season lined up. Lots of different kinds of plays. We know that is what you come to No Script for, is the huge variety. We'll be talking about classics. We'll be talking about brand new scripts. We'll be talking about awarded famous playwrights that are working. We'll be talking about playwrights you might not have heard of. That is what No Script is, and we're excited to do it. And we're excited because we have this tradition that we've kept around and we do our best to maintain, although it like practically isn't possible, but because we do 2 seasons a year and there's only 1 Pulitzer awarded every year. And that has been our early season, beginning of season episode for a while now. We've tried to talk about the most recent Pulitzer. We have been trying for several years now to get our hands on this particular script, the script that won the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for Drama, Hot Wing King by Katori Hall. It's been a hard script to get your hands on because it's been so, like, hot, not to make a hot wing pun, but it's been, like, produced anywhere and everywhere. And so they haven't put out a script, and they finally have put out this sort of early EPUB edition that, at least at the time of recording this episode, is the only way to get your hands on some published edition of the script. So we're going to be talking about that version of the script. I anticipate in the next year or so a published version of the script that probably will have undergone some edits and changes, as happens with the script development process. May come available like the regular old acting edition that you're used to buying online. That may very well come out in the next year. Maybe we'll come back to it at some point, but we're going to roll ahead with what we've got because this is such an exciting script to talk about. And we've been waiting years, literally, every season since spring 2021. We've been like, maybe this is the season we'll get to do Hot Wing King as the first episode. And it hasn't worked out. And now it has. We've arrived.
At long last, after years of scrounging, trying to find somewhere to buy it, we have the copy to talk about today. Excited for the conversation. It's a great script. It's fun. Like got so fun. Great sort of characters. Great story that we're telling too. So yeah, excited for the chance to finally get to turn our attention to it. Before we jump into the conversation, though, right away at the start of the season, wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all the Patreons over at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast for being patrons of the show. Y'all rocketh. Thank you all so much. Rocketh.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a way to help out the show, patreon.com/noscriptpodcast is a great way to do it. Number of different tiers of patronship over there. Lowest one being just $1, $12 over the course of the year. And now right away, start of the season. If you've been kind of waiting for the season to kind of kick off, a great time to start again, whether you're kind of coming across the show for the first time or been a long time listener looking for a way to get involved more and help out the show a great amount. You can head on over to patreon.com/noscriptpodcast and get access to all sorts of fun stuff like patron-only posts, advanced access of like themed months and things like that. So it's a great spot to hang out, have conversations over there. We'll see you at patreon.com/noscriptpodcast.
And as a special thank you, something that we've been moving around when we do it in the season, and I think we're going to try to start doing it at the beginning of every season because it's a celebration. It's a fun way in to celebrate all the folks who make No Script possible. We are excited to announce we announced a full list of folks who are at the playwright tier or higher. These are folks who support No Script in a really substantial way, and we're grateful to all our patrons. But to the folks at the playwright tier or higher, we are excited to be able to give you a shout out at the beginning of every season. Those folks are Christopher Scott, Liliana Hogan, Jonathan Edge, Brock Borick, Robin Anderson, Krista Baker, Albert Dayan, Joanna Lawler, Roger Hartley. We have David Lindsay Aber. We have Patricia Ralph. We have Brennan Sarr. We have Kyle and Lisa Tenholzen. We have Craig Elliott Frew. Those are the folks at the playwright tier or higher. Big thank you to you all. Your support makes this podcast possible. Thanks to all our supporters as well. And now back to the script.
Here we go.
Cool. Hey, so we've already talked about Katori Hall on the podcast. We talked about her play The Mountaintop, which is sort of a reimagining of one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Last Nights on Earth. Great play. That play obviously is hugely popular for its famous persona that are at the center of the play. Katori Hall also is known for writing the book for the Tina Turner musical. If you've seen Tina, she's one of the minds behind that. She's also had a hit television series recently called P-Valley that I think a lot of folks would know her from as well. The Hot Wing King is, let's call it a COVID baby. Like, something like that, right? This, we've sort of discovered across heading into 13 seasons now of this podcast, a group of plays that came to life either shortly before or shortly after the COVID pandemic. And because of that, have had kind of an interrupted journey. This play premiered at the Signature Theater in Manhattan, directed by Steve Broadnax III. It was premiered in February of 2020 off-Broadway. February of 2020. That just hurts to say. If you say out loud, this play premiered February 2020, the next immediate thing is just like a stabbing in your gut.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awful. Yep. What a terrible, unfortunate thing for the world. And then thinking about it, this specific play, for what it is, for what it celebrates, for the stories it tells, to get cut short like that. It's quite sad. But it does, lo and behold, probably really good for its sustained life. It's hard to know with these COVID baby plays, like what happens to them if they don't have any kind of national acclaim after COVID cuts their life short, because that generation of plays, some of them are just lost because theater struggled to hold on to itself. This play, however, got that national acclaim. It won the 2021 Pulitzer Prize for Drama. This after Katori Hall had, of course, already been nominated for The Mountaintop. That, I think, kept it alive because it has a whole series now of plays at really recognizable high-level regional professional houses, including places like the Studio Theater in D.C. in summer 2022, the Alliance Theater in Georgia, directed in 2022, premiered very early in 2023. That production actually directed by Katori Hall herself. Then early 2024 at the Hartford Stage in Connecticut, the Center Stage in Baltimore at April 2024, the Playhouse on the Square, which cool enough is in Memphis. Memphis is where the play is set. Memphis is also where Katori Hall grew up. that it premiered in this past summer, 2024. And I mean, in theory, right now, we of course record episodes ahead of time. So depending exactly on when this episode is coming out, it should be right now at the National Theatre in London. The Hot Wing King should be there as we speak. Super fun to check out. I don't know if it'll be part of the National Theatre's like streaming service. If it does, I will be eagerly anticipating the release of that streaming.
Yeah.
The Hot Wing King comes out of, there's a great interview with Katori Hall, just in terms of setting the stage for where it comes from, about her brother, about growing up in Memphis in the South, and what it meant for her brother to sort of discover how to be a gay black man in a committed relationship in the South. And that was part of her and her family's lived experience, and inspired kind of the central world of this play. This play really like feels like it comes out of that. I guess maybe that's the best way that I could say that. It feels specific to Memphis, which is cool. That's why I loved that it just had a run at Playhouse in the Square in Memphis. I'm sure that was its own like unique kind of event. The play from Memphis, from a Memphis playwright to come back and be in Memphis, I think is just super cool. So that's been its life so far. And I guess it's hard to say that it's going to go farther. Like the National Theater is like, how much bigger do you get, I guess, than the National Theater and the Pulitzer Prize? But this play's going to be around for a while. It's joyful. It's really, really funny. It's a manageable sized cast. It's from a playwright whose voice we know theater is trying to lift up as a whole right now. It's about a story that matters from an underrepresented group. I mean, there's just so many reasons to celebrate what the Hot Wing King is in its context and potentially where it's going.
Yeah, definitely excited to kind of see if there's a way to catch that National Theater production, but also catch any of the number of productions.
Should we just
around.
Go to London? Do we make enough Patreon subscriptions that we could just
no, but
go to London? Hey, so folks, here's what I'll say. This is totally unprompted. Jackson and I have not discussed this.
Unscripted.
If you're out there and you want to pay for our trip to London to see the Hot Wing King, we'll record another episode about this play after having seen it, and we'll like fully credit you. It'll be like, this episode sponsored by so-and-so. If you want to fund our trip to London to see Hot Wing King at National Theater, first of all, you probably better get with us pretty quick because I think it closes in September.
Pretty soon.
Let us know. We're ready. Like I'll have like London plane flights just like kind of around and just like keep them in mind. So hey, heads up to you. We'd love that.
Might even shoot a video of it.
Oh, we will shoot a video episode. It'll be a video episode. Shout out to you who sent us. That's what's on the table. I think that's legally binding at this point. We said it.
We said it. So make it happen. All right, so we're going to jump into the conversation around the Hot Wing King here. We're moving a little bit of a switch up this season. We're going to move away from synopses and a little bit more towards summaries, just so we can get into the conversation a little bit sooner. So I'm going to just do a very brief sort of summary of the script, and then we'll just start chatting about it. So this play takes place, as Jacob already said, in Memphis, and it takes place on the annual Hot Wang Festival down in Memphis, Tennessee. The characters that are here for this festival are Cordell and Dwayne, who are a couple. They've kind of recently come out of the closet, but have had a relation. Or I'm sorry, Cordell has recently come out of the closet. Dwayne and Cordell, though, have been in a relationship for quite a while now. But Cordell has recently left his marriage, his wife and 2 kids, and come to Memphis to live with Dwayne. Cordell is very excited about the festival, the Hot Wang Festival. This is a recurring event for this group of friends, which includes Esam and Big Charles, both fantastically flamboyant gay men, and they are all here to make wings for this festival. The play takes place over about 24 hours. They're preparing manically sometimes for this wing festival. Cordell really wants to win it. However, there's some chaos thrown into it. Dwayne's sister's husband TJ and his son EJ, or Everett, are kind of in a moment of upheaval. TJ is described in the character description as a longtime dealer who is about that life, in quotes. And they're kind of in a moment of disorientation. TJ is living with another woman, and Everett has to go live somewhere else. So Everett is kind of dropped off into the house, and chaos sort of ensues. Everett and Cordell don't always get along. Cordell is pretty sure Everett has stolen from Dwayne in the past, and so there's some tension there, but also some tension with Cordell and trying to figure out his own story of children and how he's going to interact with this child again. Everett notably is 16, quite young. So chaos happens. Everett jumps into the competition and things like that. Joins in the hot wings. A big moment happens where Isam is left with the flavors overnight and with the hot sauce, and he adds quite a bit of hot sauce to it, leading to an enormously hot final product. Lots of conversations happen with Cordell and Dwayne around the way that their relationship is developing and things like that. We'll get into all that in just a minute, but the following day happens. They all awaken. They take this enormously robust hot sauce to the festival and get a bunch of people to basically do a hot sauce challenge. Try to survive 5 wings, and that becomes the new style of winning, which Everett is actually able to do. He manages to get 5 wings down without any help from water or milk, and so he is crowned this year's Hot Wing King. And there's a kind of a beat of TJ's acceptance. TJ tries to bring Everett back and have him live with him still, but Everett is more and more wanting to live with Dwayne, and Dwayne and Cordell kind of make up and are able to make a home for Everett to be in. There you go. That's the summary. There's so many little pockets to talk about, though. So excited to jump into it.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of different interviews and different cast members from the various productions talking about the show. And the reoccurring theme from those folks having done the show is this like idea of joyfulness or celebration. Yeah. And that was one of the things that I thought really rang through just from reading it as well. If this is your first episode of No Script, you're joining us for episode 1 here. What we talk about the scripts, right? We're not like live performance reviewers or anything like that. We're interested in play scripts and playwrights and the craft of writing. But this was an interesting sort of coming together, which is what you would want, of the reading experience and what it seems like from the various like audience videos that theaters tend to shoot after a show and the different actors talking about it. Is this like, this play is a celebration. It is. A lot of the cast members talked about the rarity of a show where 5 black men are the cast. Or maybe 6 black men. I guess I have to count the characters, but that the whole cast is made up of black men, and how very, very rare an experience that is, even as like theater and film as an industry tries to be more and more fairly representative. It's still the case that it's much more common to see a show with all white people than it is to see a show all people of color. And they go on, I'm sorry that I can't remember the specific actor that talked about this, but they went on to describe how oftentimes when that is the play or the story that you're doing, like what do those stories tend to be about? Like they tend to be about racial trauma. And they tend to be these really heavy dramas about oppression and the history of this country and all of that. And not to say, nobody's saying that those aren't good stories to tell. But this actor was just enjoying the fact that this play is so full of joy and celebration and expression, and that it doesn't require like the cast to carry these like terrible, awful histories as much as it does just offer a place for self-expression to be the highlight.
Yeah. I mean, and even in the reading of the script, you feel that joy just like bubbling over the pages. There's this great scene. It's like the night before the festival where they're trying to prepare this perfect marinade for the wings. Yeah. And the way that like Cordell just like runs the kitchen, and this weaving back and forth between everyone as they all have their different roles, but they're all like ribbing each other. And Everett's here, which is adding some some chaos every once in a while. Someone like makes too sexual of a joke for a 16-year-old in their opinion to hear.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, shut up, there's a child here.
Yeah.
And just the way, the play just glows with this vibrancy of the joy of these characters and getting to spend time with each other. Even as there's, kind of significant, like some conflict that arises, the difficulty of Everett kind of joining this group while he's in conflict with Cordell is on display as well. So it's antiphoned. That's not a word, but I think you know what I mean. It's juxtaposed is probably the better way to say it. It's juxtaposed really well with that joy.
Yeah, it's not like the plot of the Hot Wing King is like a Shakespeare style comedy plot. Like
right.
the stakes of what the characters are going through are very real, and like at the core of this play, like the major dramatic question, if that's a phrase that if any of you out there have like studied theater or playwriting, then you know that phrase. Like the major dramatic question of this play, to me, is will Cordell and Dwayne stay married? Or stay together.
Together, yeah.
Right, stay together. Right? Cordell's actually married to someone else. But will their relationship survive this play is the major dramatic question. And it's not, that question's not treated lightly. Like what the events of this play might cost Cordell. Those stakes are very real and treated very seriously and honestly. Even while so much of this play is song, is the crazy fun dances, is these amazing sort of romantic swooning scenes, is what you described, this like kitchen army thing, is basketball. There's like pretty intensely choreographed basketball matches that like make up two major plot points. There's so much like swirling movement and energy and activity that I think that this play like earns the really intensely personal, dramatic, longer encounters, mostly between Dwayne and Cordell, but then also between Dwayne and his brother TJ. Those, I think, are where you find the more real, substantive is not the word I want, but like drawn out interpersonal negotiations.
Yeah, let's hit on that one real quick, because that is just an interesting interaction there. The TJ being his brother-in-law, and his sister having died 2 years before. That's something I left out of the summary. But 2 years prior, Everett lost his mom. She died as a result of she kind of had some degree, it's not really laid out completely in the script what it was, but some degree of mental health struggles that she was going through, and kind of consistently had to kind of be talked back from doing something to either hurt herself or hurt people around her. And one of those days, Dwayne couldn't talk her down. He was like at work. He was like, I can't help today when Everett called him. And so he asked for a wellness check from the police, and they arrived, and she was wielding a knife, and it went sideways. That she ended up in confrontation with the police and was killed.
I mean, talking about juxtaposition, right? Like,
yeah.
This play is like celebration, music, hot wings, and at the center of one of the characters' like things that they're working on, the negotiations that they're having with their family, is this question of guilt around a police killing. And, I don't think the play is like investigating what happened in the past necessarily in terms of the police and this woman and like the rightness or wrongness or any of the sort of situations around that. The question really is about Dwayne's culpability in calling the police that eventually led to this violent altercation, and his carrying of that. And because of that, his feeling of responsibility for his nephew, for caretaking his nephew in a way that like is more like a parent role. I mean, the nephew's going to come to live with them is one of the questions.
Right. Yeah. Whether or not he is able to live with him, whether or not TJ is going to be okay with Everett leaving, kind of living with him and living with Cordell and Dwayne. And so yeah, there is this like in the some of those conversations between TJ and Dwayne are the ones that like ping out to me as those kind of rich, slow moments of kind of the deep breath that allows the swing of this play to go to the kind of crazy times when Isom and Big Charles are there, and versus the times when it's just Dwayne and TJ and this kind of like really earnest conversation around like TJ saying, are you going to be able to raise my son in a way, can will he be okay here, and Dwayne being like, is he going to be okay with you? So it well, is
and
that,
just
like,
to unpack that a little bit, right? Like that negotiation, which is one of the central ones of the play, is Everett, EJ, going to stay and live with his uncle Dwayne and his partner Cordell, two gay black men. And Everett's dad, TJ, Dwayne's brother-in-law, his uncomfortability with the idea that his son might be raised by two gay black men, and what that, like, you know, TJ's uncomfortability with what that like modeling of masculinity is. And that, like, as a white guy, like this play at some level is about what black masculinity is, what it can be, the sort of differences and variations and competing versions of black masculinity rather exist. And that's not like really for me to comment much on, I don't think, other than to say that TJ represents, Everett's father, represents like a particular vision of black masculinity. And on the other side, Dwayne represents a totally different vision of black masculinity. They, you know, there's much made of the like cashmere robes and the silky smooth piano playing and such like that, as opposed to sort of the life and the world that TJ comes from. And offering that competing worldview where the stakes are a son or a nephew, like a family member, and what is going to happen, I think gives those characters an opportunity to combat, to negotiate, to push back and forth around this question of identity without it feeling ever like too much, to me, rooted in, I mean, obviously there are judgments and stereotypes from both of them that are part of that relationship. But because of how personal and high the stakes are when you're talking about a human being in their future, there comes like an earnestness and a vulnerability in that negotiation that I think is really smartly inserted in a way. Maybe what I really mean is that it doesn't feel too political.
Yeah. There is a kind of some degree of trust in vulnerability with each other. That TJ is able to express some things that, like, you know, seem to cross a line, but Dwayne is able to kind of roll with it and kind of return it back to him. But Dwayne is also like able to say really hard things like, are you actually going to be the father that Everett needs? Everett seems to want to stay here. Are you going to be able to do that? And TJ is able to roll with that as well. So there is this like trust between them as family that is able to foster these sorts of conversations.
And of course, there's a really lovely like visual transformation as TJ and his sort of particularly biased worldview gets slowly changed by Dwayne and Cordell and the whole crew of them. And he ends up sort of walking out of the house with this incredible, beautiful silk robe, or it's a particular material, but like a very beautiful, comfortable robe that he ends up taking. And so there is some of this play is like that transformation of like, I guess Dwayne rather is like, the trust, the acceptance that TJ is willing to give up, that even sort of as seeing through maybe his biased worldview about Dwayne and Cordell and the crew of them, and is that decision to push through that bias and that bigotry and to allow his son to live there and thus have that their particular expression of black masculinity be an important part of his son's life is one of the transformations that occurs over this 24-hour period.
And of course, one of those moments of transformations. There's many of them, and some of them are heartfelt conversations, but others of them are like Isam and Big Charles tricking him into eating one of the horrifyingly hot wings.
Yes,
and
the bigot is punished for his bigotry through hot wings.
Yep. There are so many. So to kind of shift the focus to the other kind of focus of a lot of the not really angst, but like the question mark that you said at the beginning, Jacob, the question mark of whether Cordell and Dwayne will remain together at the end of this play. That question mark is set up so like there's so many underpinnings of that question mark. And there's so many little pieces that make you continue to ask the question. It's not just that Everett's here. It's not just that the Hot Wing Festival is happening and Dwayne seems to want to add as much chaos as possible to Cordell's regimented wing making procedures. It's not just that they are kind of recently able to express it in their love for each other in a public manner, as Cordell has kind of kept it under wraps for a long time. It's not just any of those things. It's all of them together. And in addition to the fact that Cordell has just moved, Cordell is still going through his divorce proceedings. Dwayne is trying to manage the hotel, and also his family is in a moment of chaos. So all of that question mark of whether they're going to find a way to remain together after this kind of pressure cooker moment of the Hot Wing Festival has many different little fields that the battle happens on. And it's all woven together to kind of culminate into the big question is, can we find a way past this moment to stay together?
Yeah, there's so many like layers of things that are pulling at Dwayne and Cordell. You mentioned Cordell's like divorce proceedings. He was married to a woman and had 2 children that are now adult children, or close to college age, I think. And that divorce is not yet finalized, and that the idea that it talks about in the character description that there is some like lingering tension from Dwayne around how long it took Cordell to sort of make the transition to be out and to be with him, and frankly to leave his family and to take that risk. So there's that sort of layers. There's the class layers, right, where Cordell doesn't make any money. And he's a chef, but it's hard to get in to the restaurant scene in Memphis, so the play tells us, without like pretty significant experience in the community. He doesn't have that. He just moved here, so he doesn't have an income. He's relying on Dwayne for everything. So there's some competing, like, this is my house, but we live here together. But who should make the rules? Who should have a say? How does that work? There is the different family tensions, and that all, I think, in a way that feels so familiar, collapses itself into being sort of represented by the Hot Wing Festival, which is, I mean, that's the sort of the central conceit of the play, right? Is that this big, fun, this sort of thing that we can all agree on, like, what's objectionable about hot wings? You know, like everybody could just be like, a hot wing festival, I would go to that.
Right.
You know, that sounds, a hot wing festival in Memphis? Heck yeah, dude. Like, there is all of these pulling things crystallize into being sort of metaphorically represented by this festival, which we are all bought in on. Cordell's dream of winning the festival championship. And how that kind of comes down is that Cordell wants Dwayne there. He wants his undivided attention for that weekend. And the pulling on both of them is the thing that prevents them from having all those different layers, is the thing that prevents them from having that undivided closeness and attention to each other. And so all those things come down to this thing, the Hot Wing Festival, and that's where you get so much of the joy. It's an amazing balance of like these very serious, deep-rooted like things that are pulling them apart end up being represented by this really fun, like upbeat thing, a Hot Wing Festival.
Right. Yeah, and whether or not like there's some reciprocity questions there because Dwayne is a performer, Dwayne does all these things and Cordell keeps going to them, and can Dwayne show up to Cordell in the way that Cordell wants him to is such a pivotal question. And so yeah, it's focused on this event. And so like all the times that these questions get close, this play does a really good job of like showing what's at stake. Because what's at stake is that they do really love each other and they do really trust each other. And so each time that this question gets asked, there is this moment of, oh, but Cordell's like, oh, but you actually do protect me. They're kind of melting into each other. Frequently, Dwayne's physique is talked about quite often. He's been working out quite a bit. And so he's like frequently able to just like hold Cordell and kind of this like piece of being together is certainly there. So over and over, even though like each of these moments like emerges as like tension moments for them, there is always an answering beat of like, ugh, but we want to find a way to stay together. Let's keep trying at this. And it's just like this, just domino after domino keeps falling as they try to negotiate whether or not they can make it work somehow.
Yeah, and to me, the layer sort of that I think is like revealed, if there is a secret reveal. This play's not huge into secrets really, but the thing that's sort of unpacked across the course of the play, I think, is the conflict between Cordell and Everett. You know, why does Cordell react so strongly to Dwayne bringing Everett into the house? You get and then really that's the other half of the coin. On one half is the Hot Wing Festival, on the other half is Everett. And those two things, you get all these tensions and problems sort of laid out for you and boiled down to that. And the Everett thing on face value, right, is Cordell saying, like, this was our weekend to be together, to be with the guys. It was supposed to be special. You promised me, and now there's this kid around. So you get that sort of base level. And then you add a layer as the play goes on, and that layer is like, well, this kid's just going to come and live with us, like, and you didn't even talk to me about it? Like Cordell speaking in that case. And it's, you sort of get to unpack those layers of like, who makes an income? Whose house is it? How do those power dynamics work in this relationship? But then I think you come down to the one that it was really, really quite stirring to me. And Cordell reveals this sort of deep-rooted, it's not a tension, it's a concern, it's a vulnerability late in the play, which is that because of the strained relationship with his old family is maybe not the phrase I want, with the family that he moved away from, with his previous wife, his ex-wife, and his two sons, that breakup of that family was so painful. And it was not just painful for Cordell and his ex-wife, it was also painful for their sons. And in Cordell realizing who he really was and choosing to be with Dwayne, his sons felt like, of course, he abandoned them. He hurt their mother. And so that lingering, like, what did I do? Why I hurt them? That relationship is broken and hurting between him and his sons. The Everett coming into their life, he ends up being able to unpack, Cordell does, that has hurt him, it not hurt him, but has opened up that can of worms in his heart, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, can I be there for this kid? Can I be a parent to this kid, knowing that I've hurt and left behind my other sons?
Yeah, definitely like taps into that old wound, certainly, and also adds another layer of stakes to him and Dwayne's relationship, because it's no longer just that they're in a rocky moment and wondering whether they're going to be able to stay together. If they do decide to stay together and another rocky moment comes and Everett is kind of like their son living with them, is he going to have to leave another son?
Yes,
right. And in addition to the person that he loves, leaving Dwayne, he'd be leaving another son. So there is this like upping of the level of stakes there again, which again is beautifully matched by Dwayne's admittance that he needs help and that he knows Cordell is going to be a great father and a father in ways that Dwayne is not going to be able to be. He sees the strengths of Cordell as a father and finally admits them late in the play, kind of on the day of the festival, right before the festival happens. He says, I need your help with this because I just need you to help me with this. And that is one of the kind of last peaceful moment, or like the moments when it feels the most like, oh, they're gonna make it. There is that moment of connection where there is an admittance of the need for each other, which Cordell pretty frequently names his need for Dwayne. And Dwayne frequently tells Cordell how much he loves him, but there is this moment finally where Dwayne says, I need you to help me with Everett. And that I think is one of the big breaking points where Cordell has already named that this is a core fear of his, and there is this moment where he's able to move into that with Dwayne as a result of Dwayne's admittance of it.
No, yeah, completely, totally. And in that way that great writers can, that issue ends up being resolved with the coming together of those two sides of the coin, right? I mean, what is the sort of signal? What is the thing that marks Cordell moving forward in his willingness really to be in Everett's life and thus to be able to sort of stick around and be in this relationship with Dwayne? He takes Everett to the Hot Wing Festival. This thing that at the beginning of the play was this protected thing that was for he and his buddies and for his partner Dwayne, and it was supposed to be just for them. And he gets upset when Dwayne brings this teenager into the mix. At the end, he takes Everett instead of Dwayne. And I just love that substitution is so beautiful in what it like represents for Cordell's journey, this sort of journey that we've been on over 24 hours. And then, of course, there's the great fun that is this play of him coming home and having won the hot wing eating challenge and all of that such stuff. But it's in that moment, there's that moment late in the play when Dwayne asks, really without asking, the ask without asking, Cordell to take Everett with him. And Cordell's decision, yes, and that being okay. Now we're here. And what the coming together of those things is just so smart. Such a great writerly thing.
Yep. Yeah. That the way that transitions the kind of move of Cordell towards this family is then like really well mirrored by the last scene, because everyone goes outside after the Wing Festival to play basketball together, and it's Dwayne kind of looking out the window at his fun little scrappy family that he's made, with Isam and Big Charles playing against Cordell and Everett. So it's got kind of the both of them move through that moment of forward into this new dynamic as a family together. Yeah,
but as in the time that we have left here, one of the things that like was occurring to me throughout the play, and maybe why I'm so excited if there's a way to see the National if they stream it, this play seems really complicated to produce to me. I mean, as a director and playwright, it's like there's so much required for this play. It's a big, beautiful house. There's a lot of plays set in big, beautiful houses. But where the making of Hot Wings is like, not just like a central plot device and they talk about it and they negotiate around it. Big sections of the play occur during the making of Hot Wings.
Yeah.
A big plot point of the play occurs around how they cook the hot wings. All of that kitchen stuff that's necessary, chopping chicken throughout, mixing up marinade throughout, baking chicken, prepping all of this stuff, right? All of that like little business around the chicken cooking is there. Then you have like the music side of it, which is a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of piano playing. You have all that. Then you have all the outside stuff. There's the grill, there's the barrels that one of them sprays out with the hose, right? And then there is like, to me, the moment in play where I was like, whoa, okay, weirdly, was the basketball. Like intense basketball games where like when you make a shot and when you don't is like part of the story.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. There's like character development and plot happens as a result of the choreographed basketball match. So yeah, there's a lot in this play for sure. It would be striking, certainly. I'd be excited to see a minimalist version of this play, but it's.
I have a hard time.
Doesn't occur to me
really
how
honest.
I would do it. Yeah, like it'd be like, ooh, you're doing this minimalistic? How? Because it does seem so integral to have these prop pieces. Like Isam spends the whole night stirring the marinade, and like so there's like the really specific pieces and props. Multiple levels of this home are engaged with. Sometimes scenes happen side by side. I suppose if you could probably get away with some really cool set design that was minimalistic. But as far as the prop work goes, yeah, there's some really specifically required stuff that really tells a story really well as a result of the props being there.
Several seasons ago, we talked about Lynn Nottage's play Clyde's, right? Which is set in a commercial kitchen, a sandwich like truck stop. And part of that play, they talk about the choreography. I remember discussing in our episode the interviews we watched about the choreography of a commercial kitchen, the chopping, the cooking, the sliding, the dings, all the different stuff that makes that up. To me, this play is that play, and then you add singing and dancing, and then you add basketball.
Yeah. Absolutely. So much great movement, so much like it brings you into the action of preparing for the Wing Festival and the action of this family as well.
The effect, it ends up being like kind of like maximalist. Like, I mean, and again, it was only in my imagination at this point, but the effect of all of that together, this just like robust package of all these wonderful, energetic, lively pieces as we really fly through it. It's a long play, but it moves so quickly, in part because of just like all this stuff. And it feels big in that way. And the bigness of it, to me, really complements the the small interpersonal conflicts and negotiations in this really beautiful pairing.
And there's so many great parts of this play, so many great different facets, so many great characters. We could zoom in on like a couple of the conversations alone if we wanted to and just spend a good chunk of time with that. Alas, we are down to the end of our time for this particular episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to stop. We want to continue to be a place that people can chat about plays with us, certainly, having read the play. If you're looking for someone else who has read the play, we're those people. But also we're excited to kind of continue to try to foster a community in which folks can come to have conversations about plays with other people who have read the plays. So in general, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or X at the username @NoScriptPodcast. We also have a Gmail, noscriptpodcast@gmail.com, and Patreon, where you can also post in if you're one of the patrons and have conversations over there. Find us on any of those sites. We'd love to keep talking about the Hot Wing King with you.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you've enjoyed our other 12 full seasons, if you're looking forward to the more episodes in this season, recommend us, if you would, to your family, your friends, anybody you know that likes conversations around plays, around theater, but also around like things like writing, themes, character analysis, that kind of stuff. This is the place to listen to that, to engage with the conversation on that. Send them our way. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, all the places you get your podcasts. If you like our Facebook page, a link appears really easy to click and play every Monday when we publish. We're back. Another season is here. Every Monday between now and the end of the season, we will be around. We will see you there. Until then, that's Jackson. I'm Jacob. Thanks for joining us for No Script the Podcast.